There we go.
Fantastic. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to everyone. Come on in. I know we started about a minute or two early, but we are so excited to be talking about all things related to cruising with special needs children today, a topic that is very near and dear to our co-host's heart. So we will go ahead and wait just a minute for everyone to start coming in. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's having an awesome weekend so far.
Oh, from Taiwan. Hello.
We are so excited to be trying this new platform. So you guys are going to have to let us know how you like it. Good thing is you're going to be able to share it with family and friends who maybe aren't in the Facebook group if you need to. So we are excited about that. Awesome. Everyone come on in. And Crissi, how are you doing? How's your weekend?
I am doing super. We have had a really, I've had a fun week. It was World Princess Week, so I dressed up as a different princess every day, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh, amazing. Oh, okay. Well, I think that's a perfect way to go ahead and get started.
Let's do it.
So you guys know I'm Rebecca. I am your host and your admin in the Disney Cruise Line community, and we're so excited to have Crissi O'Kane here with us today. We just want to say thank you to everyone who submitted your questions beforehand. We're going to go ahead and try and get to as many of those as possible. If you have anything additional, put it in the comments. Crissi and I will see it. But Crissi, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah, so I'm Crissi O'Kane. I am a Disney travel professional, but in my previous career, I worked as a behavioral therapist for about 13 years. I realized I always say like over 10 years, but I was like, I should find out exactly how many. And prior to that, I've always been a lifelong sibling of autism, and I also do have my own visual impairments as well. So disability and accessible services are extremely near and dear to my heart. And when I started in the field of travel planning, I realized that there's a huge need for travel planners that specialize in special needs travel planning. Some of my clients have questions that are, sometimes they come to me like, I'm embarrassed to ask this. I'm like, hey, don't, it's okay. Everybody has different needs. And that's what's important, to find somebody that specializes in your needs. And believe me, no question is going to surprise me now. Everybody's needs are so vital to them. And it's important to have somebody that's willing to really consider all possible creative solutions and be solution focused, so that everybody can have the best time, no matter where you're going.
Yes, absolutely. This is your vacation too, whether you're planning it and you need special services yourself, or there's someone in your family who needs it. You deserve to have the best vacation possible. So the tips that Crissi's going to provide today are hopefully going to help take a little bit of that planning pressure off of your shoulders and add a little bit more fun back into the planning process. But if you want to contact Crissi, you can do that. We'll leave a link to get in touch with her directly after we're done today. But I guess we can go ahead and start diving into the tips.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Yeah, so tip 1 is booking as early as possible. And this really, it's my 5 tips. The first 3 are really just general tips to improve your experience. And the second 2 address my top 2 concerns that people come to me with. But these 3 are booking as early as possible. And this gives you the option to pick your ideal stateroom. Your ideal stateroom is going to look different than the person that calls me next week. Everybody's perfect stateroom is different. Some people want the large balconies on the back of the ship for privacy and quiet. Some people want to be right next to the elevator for convenience. Some people want those ocean view rooms with a larger layout for space and to not have the balcony concern, right? So that everybody's ideal stateroom is different. And then if you are looking at the accessible staterooms, those do come in all different categories, including concierge, but they are first come first serve. And it's odd. Sometimes they sell out. Sometimes when you're looking at a last minute cruise, the only rooms available are accessible rooms. So, it's a mixed bag. But especially if you're like, well, I want an accessible room and I want it to be an inside room, and so you have those kind of 2 factors that you're looking for your accessible, your perfect stateroom. You really want to book early to give yourself the most likelihood of your perfect room still being available. Also, if you're looking at those specialty itineraries, which I believe is our kind of our next focus, you want to book those as early as possible too. And then the other one is early dining. And this one really, my clients that end up with second seating for dining, they still have a fantastic time. But early dining does end up booking early. or selling out early. Yeah, you book early and you get earlier dining. And so booking early gives you more likelihood of having that early dining already ahead of time, not needing to go and see guest services on board to try to get moved to it. And again, it just creates a little bit of a smoother transition, into your cruising experience. So booking early is always a great way to get started.
And I was gonna say, typically you recommend, I mean, even in general, booking early, even if you don't need any special
Exactly. Yeah,
accommodations,
booking
because
early is
Disney's
always great.
prices does
They
fluctuate.
do tend to increase, which is another thing when we talk with special needs excursions, kind of getting the lowest price on your cruise can extend budget for other things like excursions and things like that too. So booking early does have a financial bonus as well, typically.
Yeah, that's an awesome tip. I didn't even think about being able to reallocate that
Yeah,
money.
yeah,
Oh, that's
reallocate.
such a good one. Awesome. So I know we got a couple of questions about handicapped and accessible rooms.
Yes.
So can we talk about those now and what those
Yes.
include?
So handicapped and accessible rooms there's a little bit with the Wish. The Wish has a little bit of differences. So we'll talk about the four original ships first, and then we'll kind of note the one difference on the Wish. But accessible rooms all include a minimum 32-inch doorway, so that your entrance is wide enough to accommodate most mobility devices. They also include low ramped bathroom thresholds, and if you are looking at a veranda room, you'll also have a ramped veranda threshold as well. Um,
Awesome.
and then they have raised, most of the toilets are raised, and then they also have lower, so raised toilets and then lowered handles for most things, and light switches as well. There's also stateroom communication kits that are available for all rooms on the four original ships, and these are designed for guests with auditory impairments that would not hear an emergency signal. And these are things that can help with stateroom communication so that you understand that there's an emergency. They will go as far as there are bed shaking devices and everything, so you will be alerted no matter
Wow.
what you need. The Wish is different. The Wish, those communication devices are not available because they have specific rooms that are already equipped as communication rooms. So that's the only difference with the Wish, that they have specific rooms for communication needs only, and in addition to their full ADA accessible rooms. Some other things that I do note, this is just a Crissi tip, right? That Disney was one of the first cruise lines to raise their beds in order to fit luggage underneath. Such a great idea. So
Agreed.
great. It does sometimes, it's the bed height still meets ADA requirements, but it does sometimes create some guests with mobility that use mobility devices that are on the shorter end have difficulty self-transferring into the bed. So they do have a transfer bench that is available upon request. So just ask for it, and that transfer bench can assist you with any transferring need that the stateroom doesn't quite accommodate well. I would say only about like 1 of every 10 of my guests that has a mobility need ends up in this situation where they're like, oh, I can't quite reach the bed height. It's a little bit too
Yeah.
high, but I love having my luggage underneath it. That's fantastic. And then we have a question from Lisa about a plastic chair with arms and a backrest. And so, yes, they do have benches available and bathroom stools available. The backrest, definitely. Armrests, I'm not 100% sure on, but the bathroom chair does have a back and a seat. I'm not sure about an armrest, Lisa. I will message you to confirm about whether it has armrests or not, for sure.
Sounds good. And I know a question that we see a lot of is, do you have to provide any sort of notation when you're booking your cruise to
No,
make
you
sure that you're
do
getting the
not.
right room?
You do not need to provide any documentation of your accessibility needs. It is purely first come, first serve. And guests use them for a variety of different needs. Like I mentioned, like I have a visual impairment. And so the types of things in the accessible rooms don't super help me that much, right? But
Mhm.
sometimes if I'm looking at, if certain rooms, the expanded space does help a bit. So it really just depends, right? I'm not somebody that would look at and be like, oh, clearly, there's mobility, it's not that. But it really, just depends on what your needs and whether this room would fit you or not. And if it does fit your needs, then you are completely justified in booking that room. And nobody is going to require you to fill out something to document why you need it. That's, not at all. No.
Yeah. Fantastic. So that's something that if you're wondering about if an accessible room is the right option, reach out to Crissi and just have a
Absolutely.
conversation about
Yeah.
what your needs or your family's
Mhm.
needs look like, and then she can help you kind of tailor your reservation.
Yeah.
And that's a great segue, I think, into the next tip and some of these
Mhm.
like these special sailings that everyone
Yeah.
is so excited about.
So this is kind of like my general tip is that like really not every Disney sailing is going to be magical, but not all itineraries are created equal. Put it that way, right? And when you are planning for a specifically, we're doing this segment for planning for children with special needs. These sailings are really strong, and the one that I didn't list, the other one that's really strong, is the double dip at Castaway. It's strong for the opposite reasons, but probably the biggest thing that my clients come to me about is that, gosh, what am I going to do all day on the ship on that sea day? What am I going to do? And
Yeah.
these sailings just have so many activities planned for that day, as well as the Halloween and Very Merry Time sailings. They have a lot of different activities all throughout the sailing as well. And that is really a bonus on two fronts. Most of these activities occur outside of Kids Club, and so that means that everybody can enjoy them. And then also, if activities are not your thing, this is still a really good sailing for you because it disperses people around the ship. So you now also have more calm, quiet areas to explore while everybody else is over meeting Iron Man. And so it just really sets you up for success on these sailings. I really like them. They also provide really wonderful opportunities that the whole family can enjoy, especially those holiday ones. Gosh, the like Mickey and Minnie in their Christmas outfits in the atrium. That's everybody's kind of like magic moment, and it's really accessible no matter what your needs are. It's accessible for everybody. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and the big gingerbread house that they make, when I found
Mhm.
out that that was actually gingerbread
Gingerbread,
cookie,
yeah.
it blew my mind that you could
Mhm.
actually eat this
Mhm.
magnificent structure.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness, yes, those sailings are special,
they are really
regardless, but
wonderful. Mhm.
I love your tip there.
Yeah.
Should we roll into tip number 3?
Sure. Yeah,
Awesome.
so this one is watching a full ship tour on YouTube, and I'm going to be really specific here. You want to watch a full ship walking tour. They're usually, I have a few that I will send to my clients. They're usually going to be about 30 minutes. And you can totally still watch the, daily blogs and the ship highlights, but you really want a full ship walking tour to familiarize yourself with the ship, its layouts, how to walk from one location to the next. And you don't necessarily want like an opinion post. You really just want a tour.
Mhm.
And that way you are like very comfortable when you get on the ship. You already know where your favorite place is going to be, and you probably can guess where your favorite kiddos place is going to be. And depending on your kiddos level of attending and interest, and also if this cruise is a surprise for them or not, have them watch with you. You might be really surprised. One of my client said that her kiddo was most excited about the fancy chairs outside of the, you know,
Oh,
as
so
a, I mean, I was telling how they
fun.
had the like really fancy, like regal looking, like she was like,
Yes.
I never would have, and it turns out like we got the picture there in her special dress every day, and that was like the highlight of her cruise, and never
Oh.
would have known. And then there's other things where we're watching the ship tour, and they were like, oh hey, now I can see that when I'm headed to the pool, I want to maybe walk from the aft side of the ship over so that we don't walk by the splash pad. Because if my kiddo sees that, that's where they're going to want to be. And like if we just kind of hit the main pool first, then we'll all be able to enjoy the main pool and then go to the splash pad afterward. And watching those full ship tours will really give you those tools for success of kind of how to navigate the ship to incorporate as much of the stuff that you and your kiddo love and avoid areas that might be a little bit over congested or a little bit overstimulating.
That's such a good tip,
Super
and kind
easy
of
to
doing
go.
your homework,
Yeah,
and I mean, you know your family best, so pairing that
exactly.
with the expertise of
Mhm.
Crissi and, of course, the video, I mean, you can feel confident going in. Of course, you can't plan for everything, but
You can't, no.
just having a little bit of peace of mind to know
Mhm.
you know where there are quieter corners of the ship,
Exactly.
it takes that a little bit of that stress off.
And some of my clients pace this out as like a fun family thing to do on Friday. We're going to watch like 5 minutes of the Disney Magic video. And the kids are going to tell us their favorite things from these 5 minutes. And then you like are already boarding the ship with this notebook of your kiddo's favorite places, like done, you're so set up for success there. And that's one of my biggest, kind of heart to heart conversations that I have with my clients is that a lot of people come to me with concerns, but I also really want to focus on what your kiddos are good at and what they love and how can we incorporate as much of that as possible, and then we don't even have to worry so much about the problem concerns because you already know you're seeing Mickey Mouse 17 times. So everything's going to be fine, you know?
Yes. Oh, the big cheese. He does make things better almost
Absolutely.
99% of the time, unless
Yeah,
you see him on the "See you real soon" sign when you're leaving the ship.
that's a bummer time. Yeah.
Breaks your heart. Awesome. Well, I guess we can roll on to tip number 4.
Yeah. So tips 4 and 5 are my two biggest, not biggest concerns, but most popular concerns, right? When my clients come to me and they're hesitant about whether their kiddo is ready or their family is going to have a good experience, it's usually one of two things: it's dining or kids club. And so I like to kind of address both of these. And my top tip for dining is I have parents that come to me and they're like, listen, I'm lucky if my kiddo sits down for 10 minutes for dinner. How am I going to do an hour-long meal or sometimes even longer? And the first tip I recommend is to try as hard as you can do in those 2 weeks prior to sailing, or even just 1 week. 2 weeks is usually a little bit more successful, is to adjust your family's schedule to match your dining time. And even if you don't sit for an hour, kind of get into that routine of we're all going to sit down at the table and enjoy each other, even if you're not eating, right? Just play a game, or just let your kiddos kind of be on their iPads while the grown-ups are talking, and just kind of get in that practice of, hey, we're all going to kind of meet as a family for kind of, as long as we're all still enjoying each other's company, um
Yeah.
as long as we can, at this set time every day. And then a couple other tips for success with dining: kind of first getting into that routine, establish a time. And if you establish that routine before you get on the ship, where there are also a ton of other changes to your kiddo's environment because now you're on a ship, at least one thing is consistent: we're still doing this sitting down as a family together thing at the same time. And now I've got this consistency. And the other tips for success: you can always review the menus ahead of time so you know what your kiddo wants to eat. You will not be the only ones if you bring your kiddos' devices with you to dinner. They will be, all over, and that is okay. And then you can communicate with your server ahead of time and let them know, hey, we might not make it the full hour, and that it's not a reflection on you and your service. If you could pack our dessert, and so we could enjoy it in the room later. And then the other thing that I always mention is that rotational dining is an amazing part of the Disney Cruise Line experience, but cabanas is also always an option. If you
Mhm.
really want to just sit down and have a quicker, in and out kind of meal, you can do that at cabanas. It's super easy, and it's still a really magical Disney experience too.
Ye And 2 follow-up questions for you.
Yes.
I know that pre-COVID, they were doing the dine and play
Mhm.
where, if the kid didn't necessarily want to stay, the counselors would come in at some point during dinner and pick them up and bring them to the club. Is
Yes.
that back?
So we haven't gotten an official announcement that it's back yet, or with a return date. What I recommend to my clients is that it is always okay for one adult to quickly kind of round up your kiddos and bring them down to kids club and then come back. And
Mhm.
that's what I recommend right now. And honestly, I recommend that anyway, because with the dine and play, that is at a fixed time. And you're also having to transfer the kind of, the like instructional control or authority from yourself to another person in an immediate moment in a setting that your kiddo might not be familiar with. So I think it's a lot of smoother of a transition if a parent actually walks their special needs kiddo down to kids club and then comes back. The ships are large, but the dining and the kids club are kind of located conveniently to each other. So this is very
Mhm.
feasibly done, and what I would
Amazing.
most recommend.
And you talked about iPads or devices, and I know we see a
Mhm.
lot of questions about Wi-Fi. Is it included? How is it on board if my kid does need videos to kind of keep attention? So can you speak to Wi-Fi there?
Absolutely. Yeah, so Wi-Fi is not included on board. It is available at an additional charge. There's usually a welcome package with a little bit of data to kind of get you started. um,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then it's available at an additional charge. And it's very good. Of all the cruise lines, it's one of the best Wi-Fi available. You will be able to easily do games and basic communication, no problem. Watching videos is no problem. Streaming videos is sometimes pushing it, but most people aren't recording themselves while they're eating dinner when they're a child with special needs. So it's not usually that big of an issue. But
Yes.
hey, the first special needs child streamer that books a Disney cruise with me, that will be an awesome experience. I would love to have that. But
Yes.
so typically the Wi-Fi is totally strong enough for basic use. But I do recommend that parents take some time to download already, so you're not actually using Wi-Fi, things that your kiddos love to watch. That way, you don't even need the Wi-Fi. You can set them up with their tablet and their favorite movie. It's probably Little Mermaid, because that's the best of all time, right? So they can sit there and they can watch their Little Mermaid, and it's amazing, right? Or Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, whatever it is, and you don't even need Wi-Fi, and you're set. But you can kind of have that Wi-Fi add-on as a backup plan should you need it. But usually if you download the content that you know your kiddos likes, then you don't even need it.
And I know we see a lot of questions. We got one about how the crew is with
Mhm.
special needs kids or special needs family members in general. So can you speak a little bit to the dining staff and if you've gotten any
Yes.
positive feedback or any
Yes. So,
feedback?
specifically to dining staff, and I think we can kind of talk about the kids club crew in the next question. But
Yeah.
dining staff, all the Disney Cruise Line staff are very well trained across multiple disciplines. It's truly amazing when you talk to the crew. Their stories, their training, they're so diverse. They speak multiple language, but they're also all extremely patient, especially the dining team. They're very flexible and adaptable. For those of you with kiddos that have special diets or dietary concerns or limitations, your servers will work that in as best as they possibly can. They'll never serve you a dish that there's a known allergy to. I shouldn't say just as best as possibly can. Known allergies, they will not serve you that dish. But if there's
Mhm.
something like, your kiddo wants just pureed foods or something like that, they will work as hard as they can to incorporate that as much as possible. You may need to do some additional support too, but it's a great teamwork that they'll have. And then the other thing is that honestly, I have truly never seen anywhere else, like anywhere, even restaurants designed for kids, is servers that take a moment out of their time to stop and like make a relationship with not just your children but with everybody at the table. They will really put in an extra effort. I've seen them like hold when they're all dressed up for royal court and like escort little princesses into their tables. Oh my gosh, it's so
Oh,
precious,
my heart.
and like nowhere else does that. So Disney Cruise Line staff at dining are extremely patient with special needs kiddos. They'll also could be completely understanding if you need a little bit more than other tables might need. If you're looking at them and you're like, listen, my kiddo is just kind of done. They'll understand that and they'll kind of just give them their space. But what I really recommend is that you be solution focused. So when you sit down, you don't want to tell your server, listen, these are all the things my kids can't have. These are all the things my kids can't do. These are all the things my kids don't like. Really tell them what you do want. Hey, we would love it if you just served, this is what my kiddo wants. He just wants a grilled cheese. And then you just kind of let him be. Or if your kiddo loves to be engaged, oh, we would love some magic tricks tonight at the table, and like really talk to them about what you do want to see. And then most likely you will get it. If you tell them what you want, you'll get it.
Absolutely. I was gonna say, if you need that consistency in what you're ordering, no one's gonna judge you for ordering mac
Mhm.
and cheese every
Nope.
night. I still order mac and
Me
cheese every
too.
night. It's
Mhm.
just the best mac and cheese.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
don't be afraid to ask for what your family needs to have the best vacation possible.
definitely.
And that I think that's a great segue into the Oceaneers Club.
Yeah. So this is, really one of the other big things that my clients come to me about is what do I do about Kids Club? Disney's policy, they do not provide one-on-one counselors or counselors specifically trained in medical situations or behavioral situations, but all of their counselors are highly trained in child engagement and appropriate child play, and they're also just all wonderful quality people. There's most kiddos favorite people that they meet on the ship, and they come and talk about them when they come home. And so, if you're on the fence about whether your kiddo can do Oceaneer Club, I strongly recommend you have to register them, and then go to the open house. The open houses, I should really elaborate on, so they are for everybody. And so, kids can still go without a grown up, but they're really designed for the whole family. The counselors are present. It's not just like you're allowed to come here today. There's counselors present. There's activities happening. It's basically a kids club environment, but now the grown-ups can come too. And that means that the whole family could enjoy these activities together. And that's
Mhm.
really special. So what I would do is go with your kiddo to the kids clubs during the open house time on your boarding day. It's usually about 3 to 4 hours from boarding time. It's really long on boarding day. Go during that time, explore the whole place with them, and set them up for success by finding their favorite spaces and what you know that they're going to love. And then talk to your kiddo, see how comfortable they are. And if they're not comfortable, that's okay, because there are more open house opportunities all throughout the cruise. There's usually 2 hours in the morning and then another 2 hours in the evening. And on sea days, there's usually a bonus hour in the afternoon. It does rotate sections. So maybe start an Oceaneer Club, then the next hour will be an Oceaneer Lab, and then the evening will be in Vibe and Edge. But remember, even those teen club open house hours, they're open for everybody. You can bring a 3-year-old. It is okay. They've got fun stuff in there. I like it.
Yes, agreed.
So, really explore those open house times. They are really set up to create awesome experiences for everybody, especially you kiddos that just need a little bit extra support and communication. But if your kiddo is borderline, they may be able to go without you, and that's awesome. Set them up for success. Just because you leave them alone, you don't have to leave them there all day. Come back in 15 minutes. Go get a coffee. Come back. See how they're doing? If they're doing great, amazing. Bye. See you later. If they're not, check in. Ask them what you can, how can I support better? Whether that's asking your kiddo or asking the cast member. And if it's maybe you check back in half an hour, do half an hour increments, really talk to the crew members about what they like and what they don't like, so that, really the crew member's job is going to be avoiding a problem situation. They are going to redirect as much as they can, get your kiddo involved in as much as they can without, really, creating demands. And that's how they're going to have a successful time, and your kiddo is going to have a great time too. So
Yes, and they
that
have
was a
so
little bit
many different
roundabout explanation, but we got there.
No, no, but they have so many different spaces in the club. So if you
Exactly.
know that your child really, really likes art and that's something that makes them happy, go ahead. There's an entire section
Great.
dedicated
Yeah.
to arts and crafts.
All
So
day.
yeah,
Paint
and
all
I
day.
mean the games, there's so
Mhm.
many options, and you're not going to meet anybody in there who isn't kind.
Mhm.
So again, watching that ship tour, getting to know the spaces, getting them excited about it, and then seeing it in real life. And I'm glad that you mentioned kind of coming back. Can you talk a little bit about, if my kid is in there and I do leave, how do I know if they want to get picked up?
Right. So technically, the policy is kiddos can sign themselves out as long as they are 8 years and older, but that is a parental choice. So just because your kiddo is 9 years old doesn't mean that they're automatically allowed to sign them out. When you
Mhm.
register them from Kids Club, you will list every adult that's allowed to pick up your child. If you're sailing with like multi generations, maybe you're bringing your grandparents, they're allowed to pick up them up too, but that's your choice. You need to declare that in registration. And then when you drop them off, the cast members will establish communication with you through the Navigator app. So you'll get regular updates from your kiddos. And if your kiddos want to be picked up, they will alert you. And they'll ask you to come in and check on them. A lot of times they just want to leave. Nothing's wrong. They're just done. And they tell the counselor they're done. And fantastic. They might not have that communication ability. And if you can let the cast member know ahead of time, hey, they're not going to be able to tell you that they would want to leave. So if you feel like they're starting to get a little bit borderline antsy, they're starting to look uncomfortable, please just let me know and I will come down, and then you can make that decision. Like, oh, he looks like he's having a blast. Maybe he just needs to go to the bathroom. I'll take him and we'll bring him right back. Or maybe they're hungry, right? Kids Club does do meals, but they don't do snacks. So maybe just pull them out, go have a snack, come back. Those
Yes.
kind of communication things. If your kiddo's not able to communicate that to the counselor, then you may need to be a little bit more involved. But that's totally okay. You can come check in on your kiddo at any time. Just peep back 15 to 30 minutes later. They'll ask you, which kiddo is yours. They'll check on their computer where their bracelet is, find out where they are, and go check in with them, and done. Easy peasy.
Yes. The communication is set that up so well. So
Absolutely.
I would say that's one thing that you definitely don't have to worry about is leaving your kid in the space. They're going to be safe. They're going to have a great
Absolutely.
time. And if they're ready to leave, they can do that. And that's
They can do
fine.
that.
Everyone
Yeah.
wants you to have the best vacation
Mhm.
possible. And I know, so those are our top 5 tips. From here, we're going to start diving into your questions that you submitted beforehand. Thank you again for doing that.
Yeah. Thanks,
Um,
everybody. So many good
and
ones.
Yes. So if you have any other questions that you've thought of while we've been chatting, go ahead and put those in the comments, and we will try and get to them. Of course, if you want to reach out to Crissi, maybe there's something a little bit more personal, go ahead and do that. We'll include the link. But we are going to go ahead and dive. We already talked about staterooms and food. Oh, this is a great one. So on embarkation day, the terminal itself can be so crowded and overwhelming.
Mhm.
So are there any sort of accommodations or any tips that you might have to kind of keep certain members of the family, maybe not as stimulated?
Yeah. So the terminal can be a lot. And, it's a little bit counterintuitive to what, you'll read online. Everybody's always like, I want the earliest port arrival time possible. But a lot of
Yes.
times for my special needs families, don't do that.
Mhm.
Don't get to the terminal. You can go ahead and cruise in there at, 12:45 and then board the ship at 1 o'clock. Know that
Yeah.
your stateroom's most likely not going to be ready until 1:30 or later. So it is okay if you're not the first port arrival time. All you're missing out on is the terminal. It is okay.
Yes.
So that's my
Agreed.
tip one is you don't need the earliest port arrival time. And then my other tips are to go ahead and look for those kind of quieter areas throughout the ship. There is an alternate entrance available to guests with special needs for Kids Club. You do need to speak with the counselors ahead of time. Let them know that you would like a sensory friendly entrance, and they will come and meet you at a calmer space and walk you into Kids Club. That is an option. You do need to kind of set that up ahead of time. Talk to specialty services. That is an accommodation that can be made.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's
it's super
awesome.
nice. It's super wonderful. It's calm and quiet. Sometimes I'll suggest that you avoid that initial open house right away. Kind of come towards the end of the open house. Usually, like you are boarding like 12:30 to 5:30, and usually you board like 12:30 ish, and like 12:30 to 5:30 is that first open house on your boarding day. And so if you kind of come more closer to the end of that time, there's a bit less of a rush anyway. But then you can set up an alternate entry point with Kids Club, no problem. And oftentimes that really sets up kiddos for success because you're not coming in at that main point. The other entry point that's tough is that hand washing station. A lot of kiddos are like, whoa, this is a lot. This is noisy. It's touching my hands. What's going on? And there's alternate hand washing accommodations as well that they can go into the bathroom, wash your hands with a regular sink, and then come out. So all kinds of accommodations that can be made with entry. The other accommodation for waiting in line, it's not really related to Kids Club, but Disney does allow, what's super frowned upon in the Disney parks is kind of like line splitting when the characters are meeting. So if you are, have difficulties waiting in line, it is okay to have one adult wait in line to meet one of the characters while the rest of the family explores the ship and then comes back to line when it is your turn. Again, super frowned upon in the parks, but at the cruise ship, totally okay. Everybody's kind of just in the atrium anyway. It's not a big deal to just kind of join in the line when when it's about to be your turn. Totally okay.
Absolutely. And there are so many awesome character interactions around the ship
Yeah.
and some even unexpected ones. You might be
Mm-hmm.
relaxing on deck and have Goofy walk by and
Just
want to
walk
play
by. Yeah.
shuffleboard.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best. And I can't believe we're already at 7:30. So we'll
I
do a
know.
couple more of these. This
Yeah.
went so fast. So
It
we'll do
did.
a couple more questions. If that's all right with you. I don't want to take away too much of your evening.
No, I am here.
So let's talk about excursions that might be more accommodating for the whole
Yeah.
family.
So again, this is part of why that Castaway Double Dip is so popular because it really is very inclusive already as a destination. But when you're looking at excursions, this is going to be a very individually addressable need, depending on what your needs are. There are excursions through Disney that are already mobility accessible, and those it's not mobility accessibility required. Plenty of people, your whole party is welcome to attend with you. So those are going to be a great fit if you're looking for more sensory or cognitive, accessibility. That's something that we just need to do some extra research on. Excursions are, booked through Disney, but they're run by a supplier at that location. So we'll just do some extra digging at that supplier, find out what accommodations they can provide, if there are any, and if they're not, we're going to give you some tools to help you succeed. Whether that's packing headphones if it's going to be loud, or really setting a strong boundary if you're doing an animal experience. Practice ahead of time. This is a flat hand touch. This is how you get to touch the dolphin, and then this is how we're going to leave when we're done touching the dolphin. And when you leave, you're going to get 10 gummy bears. Whatever it takes to help your kiddo succeed and have you kind of be the one that provides those accommodations if they're not available. We live in an amazing time for special needs, but there are some areas that could do some more accommodating than they are currently. And one of them kind of is those kind of short type excursion areas. There's a lot that are accessible, but then there are a lot that are kind of just like, well, you figure it out. And that's my job. I will help you figure it out. If your
Yes.
kiddo wants to touch the dolphins, we will figure that out.
Yeah, and if excursions just aren't happening this time around, that's okay.
That
The
is
ship is
okay.
so calm on sea
Exactly.
days, so it's a
Yeah.
great time to maybe explore some of those areas that maybe are a little bit more higher stimulus that you might not get
Exactly.
to check out otherwise, or
Mhm.
maybe get some extra pool time in. So don't be upset. I mean, we've done entire sailings where we haven't even done an
Don't get off the boat.
excursion.
I know. We
So
we are the same way.
right? It's just so
Mhm.
nice to have the
So
ship to
nice.
yourself.
Yeah. Mhm.
So don't feel bad if you can't get an excursion.
Exactly.
And I know we did get a question about accessibility on Castaway.
Mhm.
Do they have wheelchairs that can go in the beach? And then we also got a question on pool accessibility on the ship. So can you touch on those
Yes.
two, please?
So First, one general note, just because it is also in direct conflict with the parks right now, is that Disney Cruise Line does not provide wheelchairs or mobility scooters to guests. They do have some for boarding and embarking and debarkation, but that is really like all the time that they're supposed to be used. If you need to either bring your own wheelchair or scooter or rent one on your own ahead of time.
Mhm.
The exception to that is at Castaway. They do have sand wheelchairs that are available. They are first come, first serve. You don't reserve them ahead of time. You just hop off the ship and enjoy one while they're there. They're a little bit on the heavier side. I'll put it that way. They're heavy. They're a little bit cumbersome, but they do the job. I do suggest that for ease of access, that they are self-propellable. You can do it, but it's a lot easier if you have somebody with you. So I do suggest that, kind of keep that in your plans. But they are accessible. You can get down all the way to the ocean with them. They're available as soon as you get off the ship. You can transfer over into it, and you're good to go as far as Castaway. And then the pools are also wheelchair accessible. They do have a wheelchair lift. You can head right up in there, transfer it in, and transfer yourself and enjoy some pool time.
And I know on the Wish, I have not been yet, and I'm just
I
itching
know
to
I don't
go.
sell it until February. Oh, I'm
Oh
so
my
jealous
gosh,
of
I
it.
know. I'm so jealous of everyone who's going.
Mhm.
But I know the Wish has pools kind of all over the place. So is it the
Mhm.
same case on the Wish as well, being
Yeah,
accessible?
correct. Yeah, the pools are wheelchair accessible, and also there are other areas. I actually printed them out because I always get them confused. But there are multiple wheelchair accessible areas as well outside of the pools too. There's extra special front row seating and also rear seating in all of the theaters. There's specialty seating areas in all of the dining rooms. There's so much wheelchair accessibility that it's truly hard to find a spot where you can't go. I would say the only parts of the ship that are difficult sometimes are the kind of adult lounge areas, like the district. That area can get a little bit congested, and there's usually
Mhm.
just a lot of people in there, and so then I think just kind of hard to maneuver yourself in and out. But
Yeah.
generally, people look at you and they understand, like, oh, well, let's make some room and let's adjust and figure this out to help other guests have the best experience. But really, wheelchair accessibility is not that much of an issue. I saw we had a question about the hallways look narrow, and they do certainly look narrow in photos. I don't know why photos do that, but the hallways are wheelchair accessible, wide enough, and you won't have a problem getting around the ship in a wheelchair or a mobility scooter.
Amazing. Yes, with all the luggage that we put out on the last
I
night,
know.
we can fit all the luggage, let me tell
Yes.
you. So we'll go ahead. I know we definitely wanna get to this
Hmm.
question. So I guess we can do this, and if anyone else has any other questions, make sure to put those in the comments before we wrap up. But what sort of accommodation should I request if my child has sensory processing disorders?
Yeah, so the first accommodation I would request is that sensory entrance for Kids Club, especially if you plan on using Kids Club at all. It's just, again, a tool to set them up for success. If some of your sensory issues are noise related, then you can. One, I recommend just bring your own headphones and kind of practice
Mhm.
that. Practice, sometimes headphones are also I don't like loud noises and I also don't like things on my ears. So that can be, a kind of a catch-22. But really the accommodation that you can request, the only one that's definitely do that is that Kids Club special entrance. Other than that, you're going to want to just have it noted so that all cast members interacting can kind of know to avoid loud and avoid excessive stimulating activities. And then you yourself can accommodate by scheduling downtime and picking a stateroom that's a little bit more isolated. A forward or an aft stateroom could be really helpful. And then also by just, again, doing that full ship walkthrough video and identifying certain areas that might be concerning and other certain areas that are oh, he's gonna love this.
Yes.
And that's going to be different for every kiddo and every sensory type request. And then the other thing that I see very commonly is that trying to do pirate night from your room and fireworks at sea from your room, it can be a great option too. So you want to plan on those kind of, how can we incorporate this fun event without, still see it all without it being overstimulated. And there are just all kinds of different ways that you can do that without, really missing out on anything, but with also out really having to require a special accommodation from the ship.
Yeah, and that's something that Crissi can help you work through
Mhm.
is maybe what side of the ship might be best for what you need, what part of the ship, just what experience as a whole might you want to prepare for because there's so much to do on a Disney cruise. And I mean, you can do all the research in the world, but knowing what might work best for your kid, for your family,
Exactly. It's
just
very individual.
yes, absolutely is. And what works best for someone else's kid who might have similar needs might not work best for yours. So just have that conversation, yes, with your family, but Chrissy's here to help you as well, as and the group too. But I am so glad that we got to do this. So we
Absolutely.
got a question, Chrissy, if we can hang on to you for just
Yes.
another minute. My daughter's 23, but functions at a 4 to 5 year old. Can she play at the splash pad area?
So the technical policy on this one would be a no, right? And same with Kids Club. So these kids spaces are designed for children of similar age and size. However, um, plenty of adults are in that splash pad area like with their children. So it's one of those things where like you're gonna want to see how it's going. You can try it out. The area is designed for young children, but if you're in there and there's nobody in there, it's like this is going to be a kind of individual case by case basis. I would certainly say that if there's already like 100 little 2 year olds in there, it's probably a bad idea anyway, right?
Yeah.
But if you're
Yeah.
going there, especially like on a port day where it's not not really in that much use anyway, go for it.
Yeah,
People
and I was
crew
gonna say
members will be very understanding.
they have up in the adult area those little kind of wading pools
Hmm.
that I mean, typically outside of kind of peak point on a sea day,
Right,
there's usually a lot of
quiet
space in there.
coves, usually quite
Um,
open.
Yes, and then hot tubs too could be a good option. Those usually aren't quite as packed as the
Yeah.
pools or the splash pad area. So
Hmm.
hopefully that helps. But if you need any other ideas, definitely reach out to Chrissy. But I'm
Absolutely.
so grateful that you were able to spend some time on the Sunday with us. I know
Hmm.
I learned a ton. I did not realize how accommodating Disney is. I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise with how amazing of a company. But if you have any questions, please reach out to Chrissy. She is here to help. We will be putting this in the Facebook group and as well on YouTube. So if you need to refer back to this, don't worry. We've got you covered. But otherwise, everyone have just a great rest of your day and we will talk to you soon.
Fantastic. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in.